Have you ever felt that fate put you in the right place at exactly the right moment? That split-second decision to take a different path, leave a few minutes earlier, or follow an unexplained feeling. Sometimes these moments change lives forever, both human and canine. On a bitterly cold January morning, Emily Walker was taking a shortcut through a snow-covered park, something she rarely did. The snowfall had been relentless for days, blanketing the city in white silence. As Emily trudged through the fresh powder, something caught her eye. A small movement under a park bench, almost completely buried in snow. What Emily discovered would change her life forever. Underneath that bench, trembling and nearly frozen, was a small puppy. Barely alive, her golden fur matted with ice and dirt. Her tiny body was curled into a tight ball, a desperate attempt to preserve what little warmth remained. The puppy's eyes, though clouded with fear and exhaustion, looked up at Emily with something that transcended words. A silent plea that pierced straight to her heart. How could anyone abandon such a fragile creature in these conditions? Emily wondered as she carefully approached. The temperature had dropped well below freezing overnight, and the veterinarian would later confirm what Emily already suspected. The puppy wouldn't have survived another hour in that snow. As Emily gently reached towards the shivering bundle, the puppy made no attempt to run or resist. Perhaps she was too weak, or perhaps some instinct told her this human represented her last chance at survival. The moment Emily's gloved hands made contact with the frozen fur, she felt an immediate connection, a responsibility that went beyond simple compassion. That singular moment of connection would mark the beginning of an extraordinary journey, though neither could possibly know it then. Something in those frightened eyes spoke to Emily at a level beyond words, as if fate had orchestrated their meeting with precise timing. Hit the like button and subscribe to Eternal Bonds for more heartwarming rescue stories that show the incredible bond between humans and their four-legged companions. We always share tales of transformation, resilience, and unconditional love. Wrapping the tiny body in her scarf, Emily could feel the faint heartbeat against her hands, weak but fighting. "It's okay, little one," she whispered, her breath visible in the frigid air. "I've got you now." What Emily couldn't know in that moment was just how profound their journey together would become. The puppy, whom she would later name Hope, was hanging by a thread, her body temperature dangerously low, her tiny frame severely malnourished. The road ahead would be filled with challenges that would test both their resolve. As Emily navigated the icy streets toward the emergency veterinary clinic, the tiny life cradled against her chest, she couldn't help but wonder about the cruel circumstances that had led to this moment. What series of human failures had resulted in this innocent creature fighting for her life in the snow? The questions multiplied, but one certainty remained. Whatever Hope's story had been before, Emily was now irrevocably part of its continuation. In the coming days, Hope would fight for her life in the veterinary clinic, her condition so grave that the staff prepared Emily for the worst. "She's very weak," the veterinarian explained with a sympathetic look. "Her body has endured extreme trauma from the cold and starvation. You should understand that the odds aren't in her favor." But there was something in Hope's eyes, something that Emily recognized from the very first moment, a flicker of determination that defied her fragile state. This wasn't just about saving a life. It was about witnessing the extraordinary resilience that can emerge from the most desperate circumstances. Hope's socialization process evolved in ways Emily could never have predicted. Initially fearful of all strangers, Hope gradually developed a remarkable ability to assess people. "It's almost as if she had an internal radar," Emily explained to the canine behavior trainer. "With some people, she remains cautious. With others, especially those who seem vulnerable or are suffering, she immediately offers comfort." The trainer explained that this ability wasn't uncommon in dogs who had experienced trauma, a kind of emotional intelligence refined by suffering. "She learned to read subtle signs of threat to survive," he observed, "but now she's using that same sensitivity to identify who needs her. It's truly extraordinary." As Emily held the tiny paw through the bars of the hospital kennel that first night, neither of them could have imagined the transformation that lay ahead. or how their unexpected meeting would evolve into one of the most profound bonds either had ever experienced. What happened next would not only save Hope's life, but would reveal a spirit so extraordinary that everyone who witnessed her journey would be forever changed. Has an animal ever entered your life at exactly the right moment? Share your story of a fateful encounter with an animal in the comments below. The veterinarian's words hung in the air like a dark cloud. She's suffering from severe hypothermia, malnutrition, and possible internal injuries. The next 24 hours will be critical. You should prepare yourself for the worst. Emily's heart sank as she looked at the tiny golden bundle now connected to warming blankets and IV fluids. Hope, the name had come to her instantly, looked impossibly small on the metal examination table. "Can I stay with her tonight?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The veterinarian nodded, his eyes softening at her obvious concern. "Sometimes, having someone there makes all the difference," he admitted. That first night was a battle against time. Every hour, Hope's vitals were checked as Emily sat beside the kennel, her hand gently reaching through the bars to stroke the puppy's head. "Fight, little one," she whispered. "You've made it this far. You can make it through the night." Around 3 a.m., Hope's temperature began to rise dangerously, a complication from her compromised immune system fighting against multiple infections. The emergency team rushed in with ice packs and medication. Emily was asked to step outside, and those 15 minutes in the hallway felt like an eternity. When the door finally opened, the veterinary technician's face told the story before words could. Hope had stabilized, but they weren't out of the woods yet. By morning, something remarkable had happened. Despite her critical condition, Hope had survived the night. When Emily spoke to her, the puppy's ears twitched slightly. The first voluntary response since her rescue. It wasn't much, but in that moment, it meant everything. "She's a fighter," the veterinarian said during morning rounds. "But I need to be honest with you. Her recovery won't be quick or easy. We've found evidence of previous injuries that have healed poorly, suggesting this isn't her first time experiencing neglect or abuse." Emily's throat tightened. What kind of person could do this to an innocent puppy? Unfortunately, we see cases like this more often than you'd think. But what matters now is that someone found her, you found her, before it was too late. The days that followed established a rhythm of tentative progress and frightening setbacks. On day 3, Hope accepted her first small meal, lapping weekly at the special liquid diet prepared for her. Emily celebrated this victory by bringing a tiny stuffed animal, a comfort object that the puppy could snuggle against when Emily couldn't be there. But on day 5, Hope developed a respiratory infection that left her gasping for breath, her tiny chest heaving with the effort. Another night of touch-and-go care followed, with Emily refusing to leave despite the staff's gentle suggestions that she go home and rest. "I made her a promise," Emily explained simply, her eyes red-rimmed from fatigue. "I told her she wasn't alone anymore, and I won't make that a lie." On the 7th night, Hope's condition deteriorated rapidly. Her tiny body, already weakened from starvation and exposure, struggled to fight the respiratory infection that had settled deep in her lungs. Emily watched in horror as Hope's breathing became increasingly labored, each breath a visible battle. "We're losing her," the emergency veterinarian stated quietly around midnight. "Her organs are starting to shut down. I need to be honest with you. Most puppies in this condition don't make it through the night. If you want to say goodbye, now would be the time." The words hit Emily like physical blows. After everything Hope had endured, the abandonment, the freezing cold, the starvation, to lose her battle now seemed unbearably cruel. She thought of the spark she'd seen in those eyes when she'd first found her, that silent determination to live despite everything. "Is there anything else we can try?" Emily asked, her voice breaking. "Any experimental treatment? I'll sign whatever waiver you need." Dr. Patel, the night veterinarian, hesitated. "There is a new pulmonary treatment protocol, but it's intensive, expensive, and offers no guarantees." The hospital hasn't officially adopted it yet. I don't care about the cost, Emily said firmly. And I don't need guarantees. I just need a chance. What followed was the longest night of Emily's life. Hope was moved to an oxygen tent, receiving specialized nebulizer treatments every hour. Emily stayed by her side, talking softly through the plastic barrier, telling Hope stories of the life waiting for her if she could just hold on. "You need to fight, little one," she whispered. "The world hasn't even seen who you really are yet." As dawn broke, Dr. Patel returned with a cautious expression that gradually shifted to amazement as she checked Hope's vitals. "Her oxygen levels are stabilizing," she said, disbelief evident in her voice. "I've never seen such a small puppy respond so well to this protocol." Emily leaned close to the oxygen tent, tears flowing freely. "That's it, Hope. That's my fighter." By the end of the first week, the veterinary staff had grown attached to both Hope and Emily. They marveled at the bond forming between them, how the puppy's heartbeat would stabilize when Emily spoke, how her breathing would calm when Emily's scent was near. "There's something special here, Doctor," Martinez, the senior veterinarian, observed one afternoon. "In my 20 years of practice, I've noticed that animals somehow know when they've been truly rescued. It's like they understand the second chance they've been given." When Hope was finally strong enough to be released from intensive care, the question of where she would go didn't even need to be asked. Emily had already purchased a dog bed, puppy supplies, and books on caring for traumatized animals. Her apartment, which had never allowed pets before, was suddenly pet-friendly after a heartfelt conversation with her landlord, who had tears in his eyes when shown pictures of Hope's recovery journey. "The physical wounds are healing," Dr. Martinez explained during discharge. "But the emotional ones may take much longer. She'll likely have trust issues, fear responses to certain triggers. It won't be easy." Emily nodded, cradling the still frail puppy in her arms. "Nothing worthwhile ever is. Well, every rescued animal has a unique story of resilience and healing. Tell us about a rescue animal that changed your life or perspective. Your experiences inspire our community and might encourage someone else to consider adoption. Share your story in the comments below." What Emily couldn't fully explain to Dr. Martinez was how personal this rescue had become for her. 5 years earlier, after losing her job and apartment in the same week, Emily had experienced what it meant to be invisible. 3 months living in her car had taught her how society averts its gaze from those who are suffering, as if helplessness were contagious. It had been a volunteer at a local shelter, Maggie, who had finally seen her, really seen her, using the facility's bathrooms repeatedly. Instead of judgment, Maggie had offered resources, dignity, and what Emily needed most: the silent promise that someone cared whether she survived or not. "Everyone deserves someone who won't give up on them," Maggie had said, words that sustained Emily during her own journey of recovery and rebuilding. Now, looking at Hope's fragile form, Emily recognized the chance to complete the circle, to become for this vulnerable creature what someone had been for her when she needed it most. It wasn't just about saving a life. It was about honoring the way her own life had been saved, passing on that same unwavering commitment. "Everyone deserves someone who won't give up on them," the volunteer had told her. Those words had carried Emily through her own recovery and rebuilding. Now, looking at Hope's fragile form, she saw a chance to complete the circle, to become for this vulnerable creature what someone had once been for her. Emily hadn't planned to adopt a dog. Her life was finally stable, but still carefully balanced. Yet the moment she'd locked eyes with Hope beneath that snow-covered bench, something deeper than logic had taken over. A recognition of kindred spirits. "We're more alike than you know," Emily whispered to Hope as they entered her apartment for the first time. "Both of us know what it's like to be cold, afraid, and alone. But we also know what it means to be found." Those first days at home revealed the depth of Hope's trauma. Sudden movements sent her scrambling for cover. The sound of keys jingling caused her to tremble uncontrollably. When Emily's brother visited wearing work boots, similar to those worn by construction workers near where Hope was found, the puppy urinated in fear, and wouldn't come out from under the bed for hours. "It's like putting together a puzzle without knowing what the picture is supposed to be," Emily confided to her sister on the phone. "Every reaction gives me another piece of what she might have been through, but it breaks my heart a little more each time." Sleep became a luxury as nightmares plagued Hope, causing her to wake howling in terror. Emily began keeping a detailed journal of triggers and reactions, slowly building a map of Hope's past trauma to better navigate their path forward. The breakthrough came unexpectedly on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, 2 weeks after bringing Hope home. Emily had been working remotely, her attention divided between her laptop and the puppy who had been sleeping fitfully in her new bed across the room. A crack of thunder shook the windows, and Emily braced herself for another panic episode. But something different happened. Instead of hiding, Hope looked up at Emily with those soulful eyes, then deliberately rose on unsteady legs and made her way across the room. For the first time, she was seeking comfort rather than a hiding place. When she reached Emily's feet, she looked up with a gaze that seemed to say, "I'm scared, but I trust you to keep me safe." Emily slowly reached down, giving Hope every opportunity to retreat if she chose. But the puppy stayed, allowing herself to be gently lifted onto Emily's lap. As the storm raged outside, something shifted in their relationship. A fragile bridge of trust had been built. "That's it," Emily whispered, as Hope's tiny body relaxed against her for the first time. "That's my brave girl." The physical transformation was beginning to show as well. Hope's ribs were less prominent, her golden fur starting to grow in thicker where it had been patchy and dull. The veterinarian had described her breed as likely a golden retriever mix, but her unique personality was emerging beyond any breed characteristic. Emily discovered that Hope had a curious intellect that emerged when she felt safe. She would tilt her head when Emily spoke, as if trying to understand every word. She showed particular interest in the nature documentaries Emily watched in the evenings, her eyes tracking the animals on screen with fascination. "She's not just surviving anymore," Emily told Dr. Martinez during their follow-up appointment. "There are moments now when I see her actually living, being curious, showing personality." The doctor smiled. "That's the true measure of rescue success. Not just saving a life, but restoring a soul." Yet for every step forward, there were still reminders of the fragility of Hope's recovery. A neighbor's dog, barking aggressively through a fence during their first short walk outside, sent Hope into a panic attack that took hours to subside. The first time Emily had to leave for an in-person meeting at work, she returned to find Hope had chewed through the corner of her crate and scratched her paws raw, trying to escape. "Separation anxiety," the veterinary behaviorist explained during their emergency consultation. "It's common in rescued animals, especially those who've experienced abandonment. She believes that if you leave, you might never come back." Working with Hope's separation anxiety became Emily's next challenge. The veterinary behaviorist developed a comprehensive plan: gradual desensitization to departures, special toys that would only appear when Emily left, and a strict routine that would help Hope understand that her human always returned. "Consistency is key," the specialist emphasized. Her entire world was unpredictable before. Now she needs to learn that some things, especially your return, are absolutely guaranteed. The journey wasn't easy. Emily began with micro departures, stepping outside for just 30 seconds, then returning with calm praise for Hope. Those first sessions were heartbreaking, as Hope would panic the moment the door began to close, her golden eyes wide with terror, body trembling as if expecting permanent abandonment. Emily would whisper the same reassurance each time. "I'll always come back to you, sweet girl. Always." After 2 weeks of these exercises, extending the time by tiny increments, Hope showed her first sign of progress. When Emily returned from a 3-minute absence, instead of finding the dog panting in distress, Hope was cautiously investigating a treat-filled puzzle toy, though her eyes darted immediately to the door when it opened. "That's it," Emily whispered, careful not to make a big celebration that might trigger more anxiety. "You're figuring it out." Hope's physical recovery continued in parallel with her emotional healing. Her golden coat, once patchy and dull, began to grow in thicker and more lustrous. The wounds on her paws healed, leaving small pink scars that Emily would gently trace while they cuddled in the evenings. The veterinarian had identified her as likely a golden retriever mix, though possibly with some other breed given her slightly smaller stature and particularly expressive eyes. The physical changes in Hope were so remarkable that Emily created a photographic timeline on the living room wall. The first image showed a creature almost unrecognizable as a dog. A small skeletal body with bald patches and eyes opaque with fear. Each subsequent photo revealed a transformation that seemed almost miraculous. As weeks became months, Hope's golden coat gained shine. Her eyes began to reflect light instead of terror, and her posture changed from eternally hunched to gradually confident. Visitors often stopped in front of this visual chronology, many unable to believe that the first and last photos showed the same animal. "It's as if she's becoming who she was always meant to be," Emily explained, not just recovering, but discovering her true essence. Evolve. Animals who have suffered trauma often develop heightened awareness, explained Dr. Martinez during their 6-week checkup. They become incredibly attuned to human emotions as a survival mechanism. In a loving home, that same sensitivity can transform into something remarkable, an almost uncanny ability to respond to their person's emotional state. This observation proved prophetic. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Emily sat on the couch trying to hold back tears. Hope, who had been dozing in her bed across the room, suddenly appeared at Emily's side. She placed her head gently on Emily's lap and looked up with eyes that seemed to understand everything. It was the first time Hope had initiated comfort, rather than just receiving it. "How did you know?" Emily whispered, stroking the soft golden head. The bond forming between them was becoming something extraordinary, deeper than typical pet ownership, forged through shared vulnerability and healing. By the 3rd month, Hope was beginning to display glimpses of what might be her true personality: playful, observant, and surprisingly gentle. She showed particular interest in birds outside the window, watching them with intense concentration, but no aggression. Emily bought her a special raised bed by the windowsill, creating what she called Hope's Nature Channel. They established a beautiful morning routine. Emily would make coffee while Hope sat patiently nearby. Then they would share 10 minutes on the balcony, Emily sipping her drink while Hope surveyed her growing kingdom with increasing confidence. These quiet moments together became sacred, a daily affirmation of their progress and connection. Working with a canine rehabilitation specialist, Emily learned techniques to help Hope build physical strength. The little dog had likely spent much of her early life confined, her muscles underdeveloped. Simple exercises became daily rituals: gentle stretches, short walks that gradually increased in length, and carefully supervised play sessions with soft toys. "She's becoming more dog-like every day," the specialist observed during their 4th session, as Hope tentatively batted at a plush toy. Many rescues, especially those who experienced neglect during critical developmental periods, need to learn how to play. It doesn't always come naturally if they've never had the chance. The first time Hope played with a toy independently, grabbing a squeaky duck and tossing it into the air herself, Emily recorded the moment, tears streaming down her face. This simple act of joy represented a milestone in Hope's journey from survival to actually living. Night terrors continued to plague Hope occasionally, though with decreasing frequency. She would wake whimpering, sometimes scrambling to hide under furniture. Emily developed a gentle protocol for these episodes: soft classical music, a special lavender-scented blanket, and quiet presence without pressure for interaction. Gradually, Hope began to recover more quickly from these episodes, her trust in her new reality growing stronger. As Hope's confidence grew, Emily began carefully expanding their world. They progressed from short walks around the building to visits to a quiet, fenced area of a nearby park during off hours. Hope remained nervous around unfamiliar people, especially men, but her reaction had evolved from trembling fear to cautious observation from behind Emily's legs. The calendar pages turned as Hope's transformation continued. Each week brought new milestones, some monumental, others almost imperceptible to anyone but Emily. Spring flowers bloomed, and summer heat arrived, marking the passage of time in Hope's journey from merely surviving to truly living. What had begun as a day-to-day struggle for recovery had evolved into a rich tapestry of small victories, accumulated trust, and deepening connection between them. 6 months after the rescue, they faced their biggest challenge yet. Emily's sister was getting married in another state, and Emily would need to be gone for 4 days. She had arranged for her trusted neighbor, an elderly woman who Hope had gradually become comfortable with, to stay at the apartment. But as the departure date approached, Emily was torn with worry. "I don't know if she's ready for this," she confessed to Dr. Martinez during a checkup. "What if she thinks I've abandoned her? What if this undoes all our progress?" The veterinarian considered carefully. "In my experience, these moments, while difficult, can actually strengthen the bond if handled properly. Animals like Hope, who've experienced abandonment, need proof that their person always returns. This could actually help solidify her trust in you." The morning of departure arrived, and Emily knelt before Hope, gently holding her face between her hands. "I promise I'll come back," she whispered, her throat tight with emotion. "I will always come back to you." As Emily wheeled her suitcase to the door, she looked back one last time. Hope sat in the center of the living room, ears slightly lowered, eyes intensely focused on Emily, not hiding, not panicking, but watching with what seemed like a mixture of anxiety and something that looked remarkably like understanding. The moment of truth had arrived, a test of everything they had built together. Would their bond prove strong enough to weather this separation? Or would the shadows of Hope's past trauma reclaim the progress they'd fought so hard to achieve? The 4 days apart unfolded better than Emily had feared. Mrs. Henderson sent daily updates. Hope had spent the first evening pacing and checking windows, but hadn't descended into panic. By the second day, she was eating normally and even sleeping on the couch beside Mrs. Henderson during afternoon television shows. Though she still rushed to the door at every sound, Hope was managing her anxiety, proving that their months of patient training had created real resilience. When Mrs. Henderson sent a photo of Hope carrying her favorite toy to the elderly woman's slipper as a gift, Emily felt tears of pride well up. Hope wasn't just surviving the separation, she was adapting to it. The reunion after Emily's trip was transformative for both of them. Hope's enthusiastic welcome complete, with her newfound bark and boundless joy, confirmed what Dr. Martinez had suggested. This separation had actually strengthened their bond rather than damaging it. Hope now understood at a deeper level that Emily would always return. With this newfound security as foundation, they were ready for Hope's next challenge, experiencing more of the world beyond their apartment. Their first major outing was to a small dog park that Emily had carefully researched, quiet, securely fenced, and typically empty during weekday mornings. As they approached the gate, Emily whispered encouragingly, "This is your day, sweet girl." Hope's body language told the story of how far she'd come, cautious but curious rather than terrified, her ears alert but not flattened in fear as they once would have been. The moment when Emily unclipped the leash inside the fenced area became one of those turning points neither would forget. Hope looked up questioningly, then took her first hesitant steps into the open space. What happened next brought tears to Emily's eyes. It was during this exploration that Hope encountered something magical, a dandelion puff. When the breeze scattered its seeds as she sniffed it, Hope startled, but then did something unexpected. Instead of retreating, she approached again, pawed at it, and when more seeds floated upward, she began to play, truly play, for what was likely the first time in her life. "You're just a puppy after all, aren't you?" Emily whispered. "Behind all that trauma, you're still a baby who deserves to play and be silly." The milestone was significant enough that Emily sent the video to Dr. Martinez, who responded immediately. "This is exactly what we've been hoping to see." Genuine play behavior is one of the most reliable indicators of psychological healing in traumatized animals. She's not just surviving anymore, she's beginning to thrive. Over the coming weeks, Hope's personality continued to blossom. Her golden coat, now fully grown in, gleamed with health, and her eyes had lost that haunted look, replaced by a bright intelligence that sometimes bordered on mischievous. She'd developed distinct preferences, an inexplicable obsession with Emily's blue throw pillow, a suspicious distrust of the kitchen blender, and an absolute love for anything involving water. "It's like she knows what it means to be vulnerable," Emily told her sister during a phone call. "She has an empathy that I can't explain." Not all discoveries were easy ones. During a routine walk around the neighborhood, they'd passed a construction site where a worker dropped a stack of metal pipes, creating a deafening crash. Hope's reaction had been instantaneous and severe. She'd collapsed to the ground, shaking violently, eyes wild with terror. It had taken nearly an hour of gentle reassurance in a quiet corner of a nearby park before her breathing normalized. The incident led Emily to consult with an animal behaviorist who specialized in post-traumatic stress in rescue animals. "These reactions may never completely disappear," the specialist explained. "But we can work on building resilience and recovery skills. Think of it as giving her tools to bounce back quicker from traumatic reminders." Through specialized desensitization exercises and something the behaviorist called safety anchoring, Hope gradually learned to recover more quickly from triggers. Emily would create small, controlled, startling sounds at home, immediately followed by treats and reassurance, teaching Hope that unexpected noises could be followed by positive experiences rather than pain. Their biggest breakthrough came unexpectedly during a summer thunderstorm. Previously, thunder had sent Hope into a panic so severe she would scratch herself raw trying to hide. But this night, as lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, Emily awoke to find Hope not hiding under the bed, but standing beside it, trembling slightly, but looking directly at Emily. "Do you need help, sweet girl?" Emily whispered, lifting her blanket in invitation. Hope immediately jumped onto the bed, something she'd never done before, and pressed herself against Emily's side. She was still afraid, her body vibrating with tension, but she was seeking comfort rather than hiding alone in terror. As the storm continued outside, Emily softly stroked Hope's golden fur, whispering reassurances. With each thunderclap, Hope flinched a little less, until eventually her breathing deepened, and she drifted into sleep, her head resting trustingly on Emily's lap. "This is what healing looks like," Emily thought, watching the gentle rise and fall of Hope's side. Not the absence of fear, but the courage to face it with someone you trust. The next morning brought another surprise. When Emily woke, Hope was no longer beside her. Momentary panic seized her until she heard a soft jingling from the living room. There, she found Hope methodically removing each toy from her basket and arranging them in what appeared to be a deliberate line across the floor. "What are you doing, silly girl?" Emily asked, amused and touched by this new display of confidence and play. Hope looked up, her expression so comically serious that Emily couldn't help laughing. The dog tilted her head, then deliberately picked up a tennis ball and carried it to Emily, dropping it at her feet with clear intention. It was such a normal, dog-like behavior, asking to play, yet it represented a monumental step in Hope's journey. This creature, who had once been so broken that survival itself seemed uncertain, was now initiating play, making choices, and expressing desires. She wasn't just existing, she was participating in life. As Emily knelt to roll the ball across the floor, watching Hope's slightly awkward but enthusiastic chase, she felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. The road ahead would still have challenges. Hope's trauma wouldn't disappear completely, but they would face each obstacle together, their bond growing stronger with each hurdle overcome. As autumn turned to winter again, marking 1 year since that fateful snowy day, Emily realized how much they had both transformed. The scared, dying puppy was now a confident dog with an extraordinary gift. During a visit from Emily's mother, who was struggling with a difficult health diagnosis but hadn't told anyone, Hope did something unexpected. Though typically reserved with strangers, she gently approached the woman and rested her head on her lap for the entire evening, offering silent comfort. "How did she know?" Emily's mother whispered later. "I hadn't told anyone about the diagnosis." Emily had noticed this pattern emerging, Hope's uncanny ability to sense emotional pain in others. It went beyond typical canine intuition. It seemed rooted in her own experience of suffering and healing. It was as if Hope's broken places had healed into something extraordinary. Wounds transformed into wisdom, fear alchemized into empathy. The very trauma that might have destroyed her instead had gifted her with an almost supernatural sensitivity to human emotion. In Hope's remarkable journey, Emily saw a profound truth. Sometimes our deepest wounds, when healed with love and patience, become our greatest strengths and most beautiful offerings to the world. This sensitivity eventually led to an unexpected opportunity. Emily had been sharing Hope's progress on a small social media account, primarily as a way to update the veterinary staff who had grown attached to her during those critical early days. What she hadn't anticipated was how quickly Hope's story would resonate with others. A local news station contacted Emily about featuring Hope in a segment about animal rescue. Initially hesitant about exposing Hope to the stress of cameras and strangers, Emily consulted with Dr. Martinez. It might actually be good for her continued socialization, he suggested. And think about how many other abandoned animals might find homes if people are moved by her story. The filming day arrived, and Emily prepared the apartment meticulously, creating safe spaces where Hope could retreat if overwhelmed. To everyone's surprise, Hope seemed to understand the importance of the occasion. Rather than hiding, she presented her best self, demonstrating her newfound confidence with gentle dignity that moved the camera crew to tears. The segment aired the following week, showing Hope's journey from the nearly frozen puppy to the radiant, loving dog she had become. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Emails and messages flooded in from viewers touched by Hope's resilience. Local shelters reported an unprecedented surge in adoption inquiries, particularly for older or traumatized dogs that typically waited longest for homes. "Your hope has given hope to so many others," the shelter director told Emily over the phone. "We've had 17 adoptions this week of dogs that had been with us for months, some for years. People keep coming in saying they saw Hope's story and realized they didn't need a perfect puppy. They wanted to be someone's Emily." Looking at Hope curled contentedly on her bed, completely unaware of her growing fame and influence, Emily felt a sense of purpose larger than herself. This journey had never been just about saving one dog's life. It was about showing the world that broken doesn't mean beyond repair, for animals or humans. Some animals develop extraordinary sensitivity after trauma, Dr. Martinez explained during Hope's one-year checkup. It's as if they gain an ability to recognize pain in others because they've experienced it so deeply themselves. Seeing Hope's natural ability to sense emotional distress, Dr. Martinez suggested something Emily hadn't considered. "Have you thought about therapy dog work? Not every dog has this gift for emotional connection, but those who do can help people in ways humans sometimes can't." The suggestion led to 6 weeks of specialized training, where Hope learned to navigate hospital environments, remain calm around medical equipment, and interact appropriately with people in different states of distress. The trainers were amazed at her intuitive understanding. "It's rare to see a dog who can adjust her energy so perfectly to each person," the lead trainer observed. "It's as if her own experience of vulnerability has given her a sixth sense about what others need." With the doctor's encouragement, Emily began bringing Hope to a local children's hospital therapy program, where her gentle nature and intuitive understanding of emotional needs made her an exceptional therapy dog. The scared puppy from the snowbank had transformed into an ambassador of resilience, not just surviving her trauma, but thriving beyond it. Perhaps most remarkable was her developing ability to sense emotional needs in others. When Emily's mother visited after a difficult health diagnosis, Hope, who typically remained cautious with new people, gently rested her head on the woman's lap throughout the evening, offering silent comfort that brought tears to everyone's eyes. "I've worked with rescue animals for 20 years, Dr. Martinez remarked during Hope's one-year checkup. "And still, I'm amazed by their capacity for emotional intelligence after trauma. Hope doesn't just recognize pain in others, she actively responds to it. That's extraordinary." Emily began bringing Hope to a local children's hospital's therapy program, where the once traumatized dog showed remarkable intuition about which children needed gentle approach versus playful engagement. A child psychologist observed that Hope seemed to mirror her interaction style precisely to each child's emotional state. Energetic with outgoing children, incredibly gentle with withdrawn ones. She remembers what it's like to be afraid, the psychologist noted. It gives her a gift for connection that perfectly trained therapy dogs sometimes lack. During one particularly meaningful visit, Hope spent an entire session with a young boy who hadn't spoken since witnessing a violent incident months earlier. While therapists and parents had made little progress, Hope simply sat beside him, occasionally placing her paw gently on his hand. Before they left, the boy whispered his first words in months, not to the adults, but to Hope. "You understand, don't you?" What began as a chance encounter in a snowbank became one of the most profound journeys of transformation that Emily had ever witnessed. As the months passed, the once trembling golden bundle that had nearly frozen to death blossomed into a confident, joyful companion whose resilience continued to amaze everyone who knew her story. Looking back at the terrified creature, she discovered that winter night, Emily can hardly believe the journey they've traveled together. The dog who once trembled at the slightest sound now confidently navigates crowds, comforts strangers in distress, and even mentors other rescue animals being rehabilitated in their community. But more than these visible achievements, it's the quiet moments that reveal Hope's true transformation. Her contented sighs while watching sunset from their balcony, her gentle insistence on morning cuddles, her absolute certainty that she is home, safe and loved. Some people still ask why I chose such a difficult case for my first rescue, Emily reflects, watching Hope peacefully sleeping in a sunbeam. The truth is, we rescued each other. And every challenge we've overcome together has only deepened what we found in that moment our eyes first met through the snow. Looking back at their journey together, Emily realized that rescue wasn't a single moment, but an ongoing commitment to believing in possibility when evidence suggests otherwise. Hope's transformation from a dying, traumatized puppy into this confident, compassionate being wasn't just about physical healing. It was about the restoration of trust, safety, and belonging that every living creature deserves. In saving Hope, Emily had witnessed the infinite capacity for renewal that exists in all of us when given the chance to heal at our own pace, surrounded by unwavering love and patience. Hope's journey from a freezing, abandoned puppy to a confident, compassionate therapy dog touches hearts everywhere. Become part of our Eternal Bonds community today. Hit the like button to help share this story of resilience and second chances. Subscribe to witness more journeys of healing and transformation every week, where animals overcome their past and embrace beautiful new beginnings. What was the most touching moment in Hope's journey for you? Was it her first trusting step toward Emily, her breakthrough during the thunderstorm, or perhaps her special ability to comfort others despite her own trauma? Share your answer in the comments using the phrase, "Hope's miracle was." Your perspective might help someone else considering the beautiful path of rescue adoption. The bonds formed through rescue are truly eternal, extending far beyond the initial moment of saving a life. Join us for this another remarkable story that will move you and demonstrate the extraordinary power of compassion. Your support helps us continue sharing these transformative journeys that make our community so special.